The weather is getting warmer, and now is the time more than ever to start getting out plants. So here's kind of what we've been working on today. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. So getting in these plants into these rows is critical, but we have to be real careful. You have to excuse me, I just was eating asparagus. The weather is warming up. The soil temperatures are better. And so we're starting to get out plants. Now what we're doing, we ran out of straw bales, but what we're doing is getting these plants in the ground and getting them covered with straw. We don't want to have the bare soil, so we're bringing in straw, we're bringing in biomass where we can to kind of fill these trails up to get us some kind of cover, some kind of shelter for the soil. You can see this bed was watered here, but we're starting to get out our brassicas, some lettuces, some things that can tolerate a little cool weather. Now we got these little snake hoops on here, and we're waiting for an order of a frost cloth, because it's still possible that we could end up with frost. Now we have somewhat of a microclimate here, being elevated, being a big level area, but again, you can see how the wind is blowing stuff. So 3 critical lessons here. First off, we want to get our plants in the ground at the right season and the right temperatures. We also want to make sure all these paths are a level contour, so that if we do get heavy rains, it slows and spreads the water. We've mentioned that so many times. And then finally, you got to get the plants out at the right time. You can see some of these plants are different sizes, and that's because they're all raised in a greenhouse. But the plants need the proper spacing. Now, one of the things I always try to do is over density of the plants, but these are properly spaced due to the feedback and wisdom of actually just spacing them the right way, because that'll give the plant the maximum size. Now, it depends on what you're doing. In my gardens, I will have high density because I'm constantly grazing off the plants, but here, as a market garden, it needs plants that are the appropriate size and maturity, and they need the soil space in order to do that. So what we've got going on here, you can see that. Look at that. And they're going to pick up some more straw bales so that the rest of it can get baled out, and the ground cover is in place. Now, you remember from past videos, and be sure to check out the past videos, how much volume of biomass was growing on this space. As the season progresses, there are seeds in this soil, and it will start growing. So what we end up doing is we just basically chop and drop. So we can go through and pull weeds, and most market gardens are going to pull weeds. We can have volume of cover crop, in the sense of there are certain things that we wouldn't pull out, like clovers and such, because they're such low profile. They'll actually get choked out by mature plants. And then we can also add straw and other types of biomass. So the biomass in the form of straw, wood chips in the path, it could be top dressing of manures and such, will help keep down some of the weeds. But as you can see, beautiful setup. I do say so because we spent half the day out here doing this. But the key is not to have a bare soil garden, but instead to have either a grass-fed garden or to have a straw layer in there, and to build up the biomass. Now you can see I went through some of these slopes and cut out some of the leafy greens and things that were a little mature, and you can see how much biomass that creates. But not until these hills are mature will there be enough to start mulching beds. So you will still have to either purchase straw or have other areas on the property that you've been able to grow up some straw that you can then go in and scythe, and then bring that into your garden areas to mulch. And you can see how the onions are progressing up here, with some beautiful onions starting to come up. And there was a little weeding done on that. But again, the rows don't have to be perfect. They don't have to be all the right exact same size. We mow these outside areas so we have nice clean access. But as far as getting beds in the ground, it's wonderful work. Now there might be some questions about, why didn't you do double reach beds? Well, we had before some double reach beds, and we were showing you that style. This is more of a market garden. These are about 30-inch beds, maybe 34-inch beds. And it's about just getting the plants in as quickly as we can, and the maximum number of plants in the space. Double reach beds are great, But if you have to walk all the way down that row to walk around your double reach bed, then it's a little bit of a challenge. So this bed, you can in some places just step over it, and we get a good number of plants in place, but it's just more convenient and accessible for the size of the bed. Now we could come in like a grow bio intensive and do double reach beds, but if you'll notice in that system that the beds are only like 12 feet long, and then they have a walk path in between. So in our cases here, it was just easier to do really long beds of our onions and really long beds of our greens and just get them in place. And of course the paths are nice and wide, so we can push a wheelbarrow down the path. But as the crops are finishing up, we can actually just flail mow one of these beds and then just put the next crop in. Or for example, we could, we don't really need to terminate during the season. If you got cover crop, you can terminate with tillage. But here we could just literally put the flail mower down really low and just flail mow a bed and then replant it with whatever the next crop is. So the bed is wide enough that we can do it in one pass versus having to do it in two passes or more passes. And then as you'll notice, most of these paths are simply just footpaths. And that gives us access to the veg, but doesn't require a lot of effort and work. And so we might even be able to record a demo of using the hiller. So the tiller we have has a hiller on it, and we might even be able to just use the hiller and show you how to build these beds pretty quickly. But these beds are actually hand raked out and put in place, and just simply mounting the dirt up, making sure the paths are on contour as best we could, and then we're going to get straw over everything and get all that biomass in there. Now eventually the green vegetative strips will have enough biomass to cover the beds, but we can't rely on that right now. We've got to get the soil covered, we've got to get the solar radiation off of it, we've got to get the moisture into the soil, and as it warms up, the more biomass we have in these beds, the better. So we'll be looking for wood chips and soiled straw and all that kind of stuff to get the beds in place. Folks, I want to hear about your stories of doing this. I want to hear and see your examples. I want you to be able to be experiencing this. And you can either come out here to the Sustainable Homestead Institute. That's where I'm filming on location, and just kind of giving you a demonstration of how they do it here. And then we'll give you other examples if we get a chance to get out to some of the other gardens that are out in this region. But I encourage you to break that soil, get a little bed. You don't have to have it this big. You can have half of this, a quarter of this, an eighth of this, a 16th of this. Just get started. And if you have any questions, visit us at www.prosperityhomestead.org and go to the contact page and ask your questions, or ask your questions in the comments below. I'm Justin Hitt with the Prosperity Homestead newsletter. Thanks for watching.